Welcome everyone back for a live stream, back in the studio finally. It's been a while. Did some traveling to Virginia. We're back. And yeah, a lot going on in the world. Today we're going to focus on breeding fish for profit. Could serve as an extra income source, could serve as your new business, could lead to you owning a fish store like me. But, you know, I was kind of reading comments and answering, and a lot of you guys, maybe not you guys in the chat right now, but I get asked that quite a bit, and that is, do I read and answer comments? And the answer is yes. I read and answer comments every day, but as we've gotten bigger, the likelihood of your comment getting answered has gone down. More people following the channel. So yes, still reading tons though. And you know, this is a question that comes up quite a bit on the videos from years ago. And now it's been over 4 years since we made the Breeding for Profit fish series. And the most common topics that come up are, or questions or comments around this topic are, I don't have a local fish store, this doesn't work for me, or I breed fish and they won't buy them. So those are the two. We're going to address both of those today, and probably some other topics as well. And when I get the little sarcastic voice going, that is just the, you know, it's going to play the role of the person asking a question. Maybe that's you, it was me at one point, it's not directed at anyone in particular. So the first thing I find is that where to sell. And you know, a lot of people will start with, I've only got a local PetSmart, Petco, chain store, whatever you want to call it, and that's fine. But people tend to shut down there. They go, well, it's not for me. Well, it is. Like, so one thing everyone needs to realize, I think, is that if there is a fish store in your area and you've bought some fish, there is a market for fish. Now, you might not be a part of that market yet. You're not in the process of selling any of that, but it at least shows you that people are consuming fish. So then you just have to figure out, how do you insert yourself into that process? Now, if someone can do it from across the world and get their fish sold in Aquarium Co-op or that local pet store that you have, there is room for you. You just have to figure out how you get in there. Now, let's say you've got 5 fish stores around you and they all refuse to work with you currently. And I say currently, that's a very important point, but let's say they just shut you down left and right. This was the quick list of places I thought I could sell tomorrow if I needed to, and I came up with it in under 5 minutes. I actually came up with this list while I was in the shower, and that would be eBay, Aquabid. Aquabid is the fish version of eBay, but you can sell fish on eBay. You can sell it on Aquabid. OfferUp. We know lots of people are using OfferUp to get tanks and fish and all that kind of stuff. Craigslist, your local fish stores, which that's the one that everyone gravitates towards because that's the easiest one. I collected all my fish, I walked into the store, they gave me money, I became a millionaire, right? Local fish clubs. Now, we have a thing on our website where most states have local fish clubs. Some have 5, 6, 7 clubs per state, some have none, right? But that's another avenue. They have auctions, there's other club members. The next one would be online fish forums and specialty things. So if you're breeding guppies, check out guppy.com, which is not very active, but there are other ones that are active. Same thing with Facebook groups. Now, you can't actively sell on Facebook because selling live animals isn't, but you can use it to advertise. So, you know, that's another realm. The other one would be the online fish sections of specialty clubs. What does that mean? That means like the American Library Association convention, they still put out kind of e-news or e-sales. Same with the ACA, American Cichlid Association. Same with the AKA, American Killifish Association. There's also the Goldfish Association. Now, there's not really a Tetra or Rasbora or that kind of stuff for associations, but those are lots of avenues, even just right there, that we've come up with potential sales. What a lot of people really want to do is they want to find one source to unload everything, and that's just not how business works typically. So you need to typically utilize a lot of these areas to breed for profit, if you will. Now, breeding the fish themselves and how to turn a profit on that, we've documented that fairly well in those videos, and there's lots of species to breed and that kind of stuff. So if you don't know how to breed a fish, that's an entirely different problem than selling the fish or anything like that. The secret, I feel, is learning to actually develop a business. That's where I think I didn't do well enough at the beginning. Even though I have got a couple episodes that cover starting a business for breeding fish for profit, I think that's where people are going wrong. So, part of the transactional problems that I witness all the time at our store and through our email system and people we deal with and people I talk with when I meet them in person at events is they don't know how much to sell fish for, or they'll even start a conversation with, I went into my local fish store, I brought them the fish, I asked how much they give me, and then they said they don't want them. So part of that is you've already set yourself up for failure. And what I mean by that is if you're the person selling, you need to have a price in mind. So let's reverse roles here and let's go and let's go to a fast food place. We're at McDonald's, right? When you walk in, the person that wants to sell you food, the employee, doesn't go, what would you give me for a Big Mac? No. Instead, they have a menu of things to buy, and then you choose whether you'd like to buy them. And that's what needs to happen when you are going to a store, or you're selling online, or any of that. The person that makes the item has to set the price. There can be negotiations afterwards, but you can't start at a point where you're negotiating before. That just shows that you really don't know what you're doing. You don't know what the price should be. You haven't done research. You've never done this before. And in this instance, you need to be kind of overwhelming with confidence and showing that you do know what you're doing. And there's going to be other factors to add to that to help with that. But, you know, if you walk in and you have angelfish to sell and you've got 600 of them at home at this point, if you've never sold one, you should at least have some idea what you might be able to get for them. So maybe you look on Aquabid. Maybe you look at websites online where you can buy them. Maybe you look at all the local stores. Maybe at a local PetSmart, you go, oh gosh, they're selling angels this big for $7. Now, if that's $7 and there's other local pet stores, maybe they can sell them for maybe $9.99 if you have better quality. Well, at the bare minimum, you would expect the store to be able to double their money. So that means you're not going to get more than $5. But you might start there and they might go, wow, we can't pay $5. We're paying $2.50 from our wholesaler. Then it would be up to you to kind of counter and be like, well, yes, but mine are local to our water. I've got a different strain. Mine are better because I could let them go for $3.50 if you're buying 24 at a time, those types of things. But if you just go in and you go, how much will you give me for these angels? It's likely they'll say, we don't want them, because they probably know, like I would know, when it starts out that way, it's too long of a conversation to be worth the time. So if it takes 2 hours between an employee and a potential seller to work out a deal. So you walk in, you don't bring the fish, you ask if we're interested, maybe, maybe not, I don't know. Then you come back with another trip and it's either got pictures or the actual fish. Then we'd have to write up everything. Then we'd have to acclimate them. Then we'd have to actually get them into selling tanks and all of that. And that's going to be a long process. Whereas ordering angels from a wholesaler takes roughly 1/10 that time. We already know the price we're going to pay. We're going to acclimate them just like we're acclimating everything else when it comes in. We can order the exact amount we want. They'll show up on the day we need them to, all of those things. So you've got a big opposition when you're selling to a store, and kind of the same thing when you're selling online. Except when you sell online, typically you're forced to play the same game as your competitors. So what do I mean by that? It means that if, you know, like one of the websites right now that we are endorsing is aquahuna.com. They are a wholesaler that sells to us. They won't sell to you in Washington, but they sell to stores in Washington, but they'll also ship outside of Washington. Now, with them, they're selling fish online. You're going to click a button, you're going to add them to cart, you're going to pay some shipping, they're going to ship them out. If you were to make your own website and you offer up crebensis that you're breeding, you'd have to have the same transaction. They add them to cart, they pay the shipping, you ship them out on a designated day. You're now on the same footing. You already set a price, someone agreed to it, and now you're shipping it. They're doing the same thing, and now you're competing. But in that store setting, that's where it typically, we get far too many people that want to make money, but don't want to run the business side. And that's part of the problem. Whenever you're doing anything for a profit, it naturally, the definition becomes you're a business, because it's not a nonprofit organization, it's a for-profit entity. And so you need to do lots of things that would signify that you are a business. And it could be something as simple as, I have a business card. It could be, the bare minimum of, here is my stock list of what I sell. It might only be one thing on there, but even let's take the example of you only have one spawn of angelfish. You've gone, oops, I made angels. Here's what I've got going on. And okay, so how do I market this? Now, you might not need to make a whole company called, coraisangels.com or anything like that, but let's say you want to sell some to a store. The bare minimum I would have would be a sheet of paper. It would have my contact info, so it might have my phone number, it might have my email address, and then it would have what I have for sale. And what I would have for sale, even though I've only spawned angels once, it would be a minimum of 3 different sizes. So I would have so if we've done our research, and we talk to anyone else that's been selling angelfish, we know that you can sell them at dime size, nickel size, quarter size, 50-cent size, right? So you've got that range. Now, maybe you've only got dime, nickel, and quarter size, because when you raise up a batch of, let's say, 300 or 400, typically you're going to get some that get bigger than others. So right there, you can have 3 different sizes, and this will naturally put you into the way you need to sell things, and that would be kind of a low, medium, and a high. So when you walk into the store, if they're typically used to buying very small angels, very cheap, in big numbers from breeders or wholesalers, maybe they buy 100 at a time, and they get them for $1 each, and they're all a dime, and that's what they're used to buying. If you were to walk in and you go, hey, all my angels are $250, you just seem like yours are very expensive. They're bigger and they're better quality. So you might have dime size at $1. Maybe you've got nickel size, which is definitely a step up. Maybe they're $1.50, and maybe the quarter size is $2.25. And you also would want to put how many they have to buy. So at the $1, don't let them buy 12. That won't cover your gas, that won't cover time, anything like that. It's expected in the business world, the cheaper something is, the higher the MOQ is, which stands for minimum order quantity. So something like the dollar ones, I would say the minimum is probably 50. If we go to $1.50, a lot of times the minimum might be 36. And then when we go to the 225, maybe the minimum is 20, right? So I think that works out to be, almost $50. But a lot of times that's what wholesalers will do as well in farms. It's not so much how many fish, it's all about the money. So it's like you almost want to structure when you're selling of, I want you to spend $50. The only difference is how many fish you're getting and the size they are, not whether you're spending $50 or not. So now I've got a sheet of paper. It's got my name, got my contact info, it's got the sizes of fish I'll sell and how many. Then I want to cover how you pay me. And so I would have that it's only payment up front. And I would personally have that it's only cash. Now, you might be willing to take credit, but you don't want to put that on the piece of paper, because then, if someone gives you an option and says, would you like cold hard cash, or you'll take Reese's peanut butter cups and I can buy them at a discount, I'll give you those, right? So you only want to put that you take money on there. But then list the ways of payment you'll take. I recommend probably PayPal and credit card would be the two, and probably cash as well. But with cash, if someone was to hand you physical cash, you have an additional step that you would have to do, in my opinion, to maintain this business aspect, and that would be a receipt. Now, both PayPal and, let's say, Square, or anything that's going to allow you to take a credit card is going to spit out a receipt, and that's going to do a couple of things. One, gives you a chance to market to them. 2, gives you a chance to capture their email address. 3, it's going to keep you on the up and up and be legal for both the store and you. And the most important part is that you're willing to take credit, because a guy like me, I always want to buy with a credit card because I'm going to save 2%. Now, you're going to have to take a percentage loss there because we're paying with credit card, but that's the industry standard at the moment. So if I get 2% back when I swipe my card, I would prefer to do that. Now, there's going to be other stores and things that might have to put it on credit because all their cash is tied up in something else. And you want to allow for that. Now, I wouldn't necessarily get in the business of taking checks. Not that you couldn't, but now it's another trip to the bank and you know, maybe a check bounces or something like that. You really, I think the focus when you do sell, whether it's to a store, whether it's to someone on Craigslist, whether it's selling online, is you want the minimal steps for you to get paid and your customer to be happy. Any steps you put in between there is leaving room for someone else to cut you out. And that's really what we're in a game of when it comes to breeding fish for profit. And the secret is, and I think this is it's the mentality that's the secret. Every fish that's in a store that you've bought ever, someone out there in the world made a profit on it. Likely 2 to 3 people made a profit on that fish by the time you bought it. Right? So just think about that. Every fish, doesn't matter if it's a convict cichlid, feeder goldfish, cardinal tetras, cichlids, doesn't matter. It came from somewhere in the world, and a lot of times it flew across the world, landed somewhere, someone marked it up, sold it to a store, they marked it up, and you bought it. So there's a lot of room somewhere in that zone to make money. Now, typically we start at the end. We go, ooh, well, if I sell it to my store, that's one of the harder spots. If you're making a lot of fish, maybe you can sell it to the wholesaler. Or if you're making an insane amount of fish, maybe it makes sense to start shipping it to a big distributor. Now, you might be at an advantage and have tons of local fish stores. You might be at an advantage and be in the Midwest. A lot of the Midwest clubs have so many clubs per state. There are states that basically every weekend you could drive 90 minutes to 2 hours in any direction and hit a local club meet. Just by being here and you hitting one each weekend, you now have 4 outlets of selling fish at just the auctions. Now, when we think about this as a business, think of that. So you go, okay, each weekend I have to give up a Saturday, let's say, and okay, I go here, I sell, I make $50. I go here, I make $50. I go here, I make $50. I go here, I make $50. $200. But let's think about what else we could do. We could also be selling to local stores, or trying to at least, right? Oh, so if there's a club over here, typically there's some kind of store around there, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. But maybe you can get some more money out of there and you start building. And this is really the people that have success, people like, let's say, Dean's a great example. There's a gentleman named Jerry who breeds fish, and he always updates me. And now he's making, I believe, about $1,200 a month from breeding fish for profit. And that's starting to get to be like almost a career at that point at $1,200. And it's taken him, probably 18 months to 2 years at this point. But someone like Dean plays up his business his business skills. He's run businesses before. He used to build houses. He used to run a cabinet shop. He's done all of those types of things. He used to run, Dean used to run a fountain pen business. He sold online, went to conventions, did all that, and he's used those skills to sell fish. Now, Dean, one of the reasons that we love him on camera is he's very charismatic. So that means we like listening to Dean. He seems knowledgeable. He comes off funny. All of those things are business skills that help you sell fish. Now, if you don't have any of that, you might need someone that's better at selling fish than you are. You might be the world's greatest breeder, but the world's worst salesman. And so you might need to work on that. But what I want the secret to be is that you realize that everyone can make this happen. So when you go and you visit someone like Greg Sage, he's selling fish at a profit, not an insanely big profit, but out of a basement in Colorado. You go visit Goliad Farms. I had to drive like 5 hours one way to get to a tiny, tiny, tiny town to get to his giant greenhouses that he's raising fish and selling them on the internet at a profit, right? I went all the way to Israel to go deep into the desert where they don't even have fresh water. Process that for a minute. There's not even fresh water. They have to treat salt water to make it into fresh water so they can keep a freshwater fish, and they're turning a profit selling fish to the rest of the world. So when you see these huge hurdles, what's really holding someone like us that lives in most of us live in the United States, from selling fish at a profit? The answer is us. Like, we're already close to a huge market. The market in the US is way bigger than Israel, right? And so that's where we need to go, okay, it's not that I can't, it's that I haven't figured out the way yet of how to do it. And a lot of times, it's like starting any other business. It's going to take time. Just because you walked into 3 fish stores and they all said, beat it, we don't need what you're selling, that doesn't mean that what you have is unsellable. It means that you haven't made a connection with them to actually get the ball rolling. And the people that are seeing success, they realize once they start selling to one person, they figured it out. Going back and selling to these other people was a lot easier. And so that is the secret, learning to sell and having multiple avenues. Maybe all your local fish stores will never buy a fish from you ever. Great. Sell online. Sell to their wholesalers. Find other, I watch it all the time. We will see a breeder sell to another breeder. Think about that. So one of the things that Dean used to do back in the day, and Dean's been selling fish for most of his fish career, which is like 30 to, well, not 50 years, because he was selling to local pet stores even when he was young. But, more recently, I would say in the last 30-ish years, he would actually do trips where he would take fish from Washington, drive them down or fly them down to California to unload them at stores there. So think about that, right? Now he doesn't do that anymore, but at one point he was. So by establishing good relationships with other breeders, you could then have a network of breeders that you talk and you go, you know what? Washington State flooded with Crebensis, albino version. Oof, can't give them away. But over here in Texas, they're real hot right now. You could send them a breeding pair. They can breed them, make a lot of money. Vice versa. This down in Texas, no one wants anymore. Like platies, you can get them wild caught there, so they're not really selling well. But I got this great strain. You send it up to Washington, you breed them there, and now you've got this network. Yeah, you're still going to compete with each other online for online sales, but local sales, you could do really well, right? So that's the thing I would say is develop a strategy that, yes, in a perfect world, you'd have something like Dean, where Dean, every fish that he makes, he basically can walk in to my store, sell it to us, and turn a profit. But at the beginning, he couldn't do that. And in fact, I believe the video coming out on Sunday will be an unboxing, but you'll hear Dean, and our first interaction ever, we actually had, he was selling us fish. And so at the time, he had to sell to multiple stores and wholesalers and things like that to unload his fish and turn a profit. Over time, as Dean and I built a relationship, I now buy everything that he breeds, and that works out really well. And we've had that happen with many customers over the years, whether it was a store that I own now or a previous store, is the more you work with a company and the better that experience is, the more you end up buying. And so that goes for you guys too. If you order from us and we give you a good experience, you're likely to order again. The same would be true on Craigslist and online, eBay or Aquabid when you're selling to customers. And so repeat business is very important. Things like upsells are important. So maybe you're selling some fish. Let's say you sell guppies and your local store is finally starting to buy from. Took 8 months. Now they're buying them. Whew, thank gosh. We've got some guppies selling. Now you've got the door open. Maybe you start making 3D printed moss screens with a suction cup, right? You're making those, and now you're selling those for 75 cents each to your local store. They're selling not very many, but they're selling some. Then you find another product. Maybe you become a dealer for Rapashi or some other food brand, I don't know. And now you can sell them those 3 things. And what you might find is the other store that would never talk to you before, they do want this fish food brand. And you go, okay, well, here's my piece of paper. Here's what I sell. There you go. They order the food from you. And every time you deliver, it's like, it's so strange. I deliver you food, but normally it's majority fish I'm delivering to your competitor and your other competitor. And eventually they'll give in and they'll be like, oh, I must be missing out. But that is a business that you've built, not just breeding fish for profit. And that's the biggest difference here is when you go into it, think about, okay, what am I going to do so that in 2 years I might start turning a profit? right? You need startup money, which what's nice about this business is that we start with, well, I already have some aquariums, I already have some fish, I already made some fish on accident, right? And, it's no different than selling a used car. Maybe you buy a new car and you've got a used car and you sell it. That doesn't necessarily make you a used car dealer. It just means you sold a car. Same thing. Being a person that can breed fish for profit, just because you made some fish on accident once and got rid of them once, doesn't mean you're running a business that way. You have to be repeatable. You have to be able to do it almost on command, and you have to be able to adapt. Dean has bred so many things over the years, and it wasn't, half the time it was because he wanted to breed it. Like, ooh, that fish is interesting, I want to breed it. The other half was, this is what's popular. That's the thing, is like, you might not like a fish, that's fine, but if it's selling really well, then that's money, and it helps you breed things or keep things that you want to keep. So, there's a lot of times, someone was saying that, I think August was saying that his local store said rams aren't profitable. My response was, I don't think your store knows how to make them profitable. So they're one of the, they're really well sold worldwide. And so they're bred in Malaysia typically, also by local breeders. So being that we have mass throughput, meaning tons of people buy them as hobbyists, someone's making the profit. It might be that when that store owner tried to do it, he didn't know how to do it, or his overhead was too high, or he had a different method of doing it. Those are all steps for business and refining business. So another person said, how do you make money off Corridoras? They take too long to grow out. Well, time is something that we all have, right? And so if someone across the world can raise a Corridora to this size and sell it for $2, but you can't, what's the difference there? That's what you got to figure out, right? And so typically we do it through economies of scale. It might be, well, I dug a hole in my backyard, I put a liner in, and I breed up, let's say, 2,000 albino Corridoras. I get a bunch of pairs going. I get them all to spawn right at the beginning of summer. Then I hatch them out and get them out there. I put them outside and I feed them. Water's green, lots of bugs going in. And by the end of summer, I now have 1,800 of these albino Corridoras that are this big, and I liquidate them to a wholesaler. That would be one way to do it. And then you might go, well, I live in Florida. I could do that year round. Great. Oh, you live in a specific part of California. You could do that year round. Great. Oh, you live in Colorado? That's never going to work for you. So you're limited by that. But guess what? You could do a different fish, right? So just because you have a fish that you think will sell well or that you like doesn't mean it's the right one for you to be doing based on location or based on skill set or based on, if I was a local breeder, and I love guppies, I love plants, I love all of this kind of stuff, right? I love lots of things. But let's say that's all I wanted to do. And all the stores around me were African cichlid stores. If I was trying to make money, breeding African cichlids would be a better avenue than convincing all of those stores that they can make lots of money off of guppies. Why fight it when you could embrace it? Now, when you're going online, one of the good things is there isn't really this like flavor of the state type of thing. It's like, oh, there's going to be people that like no matter what type of fish you're playing with online. And one of the things I would say is watch your competitors or watch other small businesses. So we're into fish a lot. I'm convinced like every state has 3 breeders of axolotls, because axolotls are everywhere and they're always hitting up store. Hey, you want to buy 400 axolotls? No, we don't. But there's an abundance of them and tons of people keep them. They're even mainstream enough where you're seeing them on t-shirts and that kind of stuff. So, they're being consumed, which means someone's making a profit out there. Now, overproducing is a problem, So if you're making cars and you only sell 20,000 cars a year, don't make 100,000. Same thing with fish. Don't make 100,000 of that model if you only sell 20,000. So, just because you've got a good producing pair or a good factory going doesn't mean it's a license to print money. You still have to diversify and, hopefully you'll build that business. Hopefully it gets more popular, but like African cichlids are down right now. Plants are up. Plants are a great thing to be kind of making for profit at the moment. And especially, there's always going to be outside factors. So what's going on right now just in the last 18 months, right? We've had Chinese tariffs that has affected plants and goldfish coming in from China, which they were usually one of the cheaper producers. Not the cheapest, but one of the cheaper. That gave some room for people to start breeding tetras and some of these other fish. You know, what's funny is something like a white cloud. A white cloud, you might be able to order in from China where, you know, they actually originated and they're no longer in the wild, but they're bred there. You might be able to get a white cloud for 16 cents if you're buying them 1,000 at a time, right? Then they went up by 25%. So they got more expensive, right? And then you got to pay to ship them across the world. So maybe now you're paying, you know, you're paying 30 cents per white cloud, but we could do that year round in a lot of the states we're in and sell them to our stores. So there is some room there, but we got to find it. And so that tariff gave us a little bit more room, which is a helpful thing. Now, lately, we have the coronavirus. We're all, well, I shouldn't say we're all, but a lot of us are working from home. We're spending time at home. Like our operations have changed. We've done things, right? We've got a little bit more time on our hands. We got a better chance of breeding some stuff. When we all come out of it and, you know, we might be wanting to buy more fish. So there's a time, we've got an opportunity right now. But the big thing I wanted to point out was with airline travel being affected, and I know this from our own business, and that is that there's less flights. So even though we want to buy plants from Thailand, or we want to buy this from another country, like, oh, we need, let's say, Shrimp King products and they're from Germany. Well, there's a lot less flights coming from Germany to America at the moment. So if you were launching your own shrimp food brand, you'd be going, yes, now when we can't get Dennerley or Shrimp King would be the perfect time to launch. Same thing with plants. And so there are things that you're going to have to adapt to. So my business has to adapt to that. And right now we might be going, oh, yeah, you do make those plants, or you do make this thing, and we're having a hard time getting that. That makes all the sense in the world. And so you have to adapt. And even if, you know, so the places like let's say Chinese factories making product, let's say fish breeders, or like when we were in China, we visited that discus breeder, right? They are not going to be able to send as many discus around. They have to adapt, and that would give a home breeder like us more options. So like Dean, you'll see in another video coming up down the road, he's raising up some of his wild discus. He's going to have a better market for that probably when they're ready to sell, just from lag time of what's going on right now. So that, you know, that seems to, you know, have an effect. And that's always going to be going on. It doesn't matter, you know, if it's a local economy, oh, someone's being laid off, you know, like a big business, or there's a new regulation about fish or anything like that. We have to be fluid and we have to change, just like anyone would in business. So, yeah, I guess while we're talking about our business, what we've done is we've changed the retail store so that it's curbside pickup, which means you basically come to the door, you can give a knock. We'll open up the top half of the door, take your order. Our employees will catch any fish if you needed it, get your products ready. We'll ring it up, hand you a card reader, you swipe your card, and on your way you'll go. So we are mostly just a pickup store, or you can order online from us. And we're not a local retail store like we were 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, whatever it is. And so we've had to change. Now that's brought, you know, revenues down and that kind of stuff, but it'll be a temporary thing and we'll adapt. And so right now, Dean has been asking all week, can I bring in angelfish? And I'm going, well, I don't think we're going to have people shop in the store for however long, maybe till the end of the month. And so they won't even know to buy your angelfish because they won't be able to see it unless they come to the door and they go, I need 4 angelfish, please. That's not going to work. So right now we're telling him, we'd rather not have to kind of feed and keep those fish healthy and all that. How about you grow them out a little bigger, and then we will pay you more money. So he's going to get a little bit more money because he's going to raise them up. Again, they're going to go, oh, we were going to bring in basically nickel size, and because they'll sell, and we sell those at about $10 a piece. But now he'll probably just wait, let's say a couple weeks, and he brings them in at a quarter size. We're going to pay him more money. You guys will pay a little bit more. But that's the way the economy goes, right? So he's got to make more money just because he's going to put more work into them. So there's a lot of, you know, things that get impacted and things like that. It would be one way to look at it and go, oh, I'm done breeding. It's another thing to go, you can see the glass full or glass half empty of, ooh, maybe we won't have as many sales at the end of this. Maybe you'll have more sales at the end of this. We honestly don't know. So, you know, it's, and if your competitors, let's say you had 5 people breeding angelfish and 4 of them decide, I'm getting out of the angelfish business too hard, stores aren't buying right now. Let's say when we all open the retail stores back up, now we're all clamoring for angels and you get to charge twice as much as you did before because there's less competition. It's a great spot to be. All right, I'm going to grab some questions, and I know there's been super chats and things like that. One of the questions I should address, where's the goldfish? Yes, the goldfish. So Dean and I spent time 2 weeks ago now? I don't know when it was, but we've been working in the fish room. There'll be a fish room update video coming. All of the goldfish are currently in my fish room, and there's nothing here. The goal right now is to kind of rehab this tank. I've planted some extra plants in there, and I believe I'm going to bring Ladybird, my boo-boo puffer, from my living room into the 800 gallon. Right now, though, there's a few other things I'm waiting on. I don't know when they'll show up, but I want to do some testing. Want to install some stuff. Might require draining all the water and working on the aquarium, I might change the way the overflows work and that kind of stuff. So don't want to put any fish or anything like that in there until we have that set. So right now we're just going to live in limbo of growing a little bit of plants and yeah. All right. I know someone was asking, what does it mean when these lights change? Well, green means someone became a member, so that's always good. And if the tower light changes color, it'll change based on if someone super chats. So if someone does like this $2 one I happen to be looking at, and I'll look at all of them most likely, was a blue one, and it'll change it blue. So this person asked, any chance of breeding red-tailed sharks in a 75 gallon? It's possible, but I wouldn't say probable. You know, almost anything can be bred in any size tank. Now there's a few like Arapaima, arowanas, you're going to need larger things, but in general, there's lots of angelfish breeders that breed them in a 10 gallon that, you know, spawn them, move the parents back out. Lots of things can be done, but, you know, I find what most people are actually asking is it a good idea to be doing this? Like, if you don't want to make any money, sure, that might be fun. Trying to make money, like, well, usually people would use like a pond or something like that and just kind of let them age and breed and do things kind of more naturally. So, all right, let's see if I can find. Yeah, there used to be a page that would handle all of this. So I need to find. Give me a moment here. Well, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, they changed the way this works, so I don't know that I can see every single. Hold on, that inserts an ad. Yeah, I'll just have to try and do my best. So Brian Schultz is a new member. Thank you very much. We've got Steve Kennedy re-up and becoming the puffer, and Tanya R becoming a snail. Let me make sure there's no. Yep, there's nothing there. So, all right. The fish tank barn. I've had great luck selling at auctions and the fish clubs. Yeah, I would bring that up as well. So there's people like the fish tank barn, Lucas Brett's. I'm trying to think of other people that I know off the top of my head. They're making pretty good money doing that kind of stuff. But they kind of supplement their hobby with YouTube. So YouTube is the advertising portion. I guess I didn't go into that enough. You know, you do need to advertise your business, whether it's putting on eBay, putting on Aquabid, putting yourself on Craigslist, any of those things. Or going to clubs, that's the advertising. Because just because you make a product, if no one knows you have it, you won't sell it. And so they're a great way to do that. And one of the ways I did it originally when I was selling on Aquabid and selling to stores and that kind of stuff is I ran the Breeder Award program for the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society. Now, it did a couple things. One, kept me in the hobby. Two, it also allowed me to know what everyone else was breeding. So if I knew that, like, wow, everyone seems to be breeding this, I knew it would be harder to sell it to stores. If we have 5 club members all breeding that, they're likely going to try to unload them. It would mean it would be hard for me. Maybe I should transition to something else. Then 2, I could also reach out to them and go, hey, I saw you bred this. Are you interested? Do you have any breeding pairs, or do you have some fry you're willing to sell? I would love to breed that long term. And it just kind of let me have the pulse on what was going locally for me. So I also worked out a deal with another club member where I bought every fish, no matter what they bred, at $5 each. Now, they typically bred like shell dwellers, rare killifish, other rare African cichlids, rainbow fish, and so on. Some of them, I remember buying like stir-by corridors at $5 each, and that's a business decision. You're going, oof, brutal, right? But then I'd buy rare African cichlids that we were selling for $25 each at $5 each. There was no, it was just I had to buy everything they produced at $5 each, and then I could sell it for whatever. And so there were some months where it's like, oof, you made a lot of corridoras. And then there'd be some months where like, ooh, you made 100 of that shell dweller. Great. And, that worked out really well for quite a long time because they had zero interest in the actual marketing and the selling of the fish. Now, the back story of that is they were club members, and they both had their doctorate. One was actually a doctor, the other one like a medical doctor, and the other one was like, I don't know, scientist type doctor thing. And they wanted some money for what they were doing because they really enjoyed it, and they knew it was worth something, but they wanted all the hassle taken out. So I'd have to go and I would pick up just like 200 or 300 fish at a time from them, and let's say we do dinner and hang out and all of that, but then I had to go home, acclimate all the fish, and sell them online. Like that was still a bit of work to do for sure, and that worked out quite well for a long time. And yeah, so don't. You can get some weird deals worked out that are still lucrative. Robin, becoming a member, thank you very much. Walter says, as someone who is local to you, what club would you recommend joining, especially as a first-timer? I live in Des Moines. The biggest club would be the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society. They were meeting basically every month. Right now, they canceled this month's meeting, and like the next two might be canceled, and it's because they meet at Seattle Pacific University. And as a lot of you have heard, a lot of the schools are closed locally. And so, therefore, we don't have a meeting space. But once it's back to normal, yeah, every month, very popular plant club. So lots and lots of plants for sale, some fish for sale. But a lot of, there's an active, they call it the Airstone, which is an email list where you can post, buy, and trade and do all of that kind of stuff. You become a member. And works out pretty good. I want to say it's like $15 a year or $20 for a whole family. And there's other things there too, like raffles and fish of the month and plant of the month and other types of stuff. All right. Dan with the $5 super chat. Thanks for the $5. Yep, we're getting through everything that's going on, so it's keeping it strong for you and your employees. So far, minimal impact to us. I mean, there is impact. There's no doubt about that. But young in the I would say the effects of this. So we're holding together strong and getting through it. $5 from Zach. Well, thank you very much. Any Tabletop Tuesday videos coming out? No. We actually were set to film one Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday night. Dean and I had already filmed 2 videos. And then we had the Tabletop Tuesday video to film. We had the parts there and everything. And we were out to dinner. You guys may have seen that post on the community page. Which, by the way, people are like, how dare you go out to eat? We actually called ahead. And at the time, there was only one other person, or I guess one other table in the entire restaurant eating. So for social distancing, besides Dean and I being near each other, we were like 70 feet from the closest other human beings there. And that's always Dean's reward. He gets to pick where he wants to go out to eat. And while doing that, my phone blew up, and that was like my wife and managers going, oh, did you see that the new restrictions on what types of businesses can be open and that kind of stuff, and no one really knew what that meant yet. And so we actually cut it short. I had to go home, and I made a statement to all my employees, and we made one publicly, like on Facebook and all of that, to make sure that we were, 1, complying with all regulations, and 2, putting a battle plan together. And it came on a Sunday night, which is not what we expected. So we have some Tabletop Tuesday videos ready to film. We just haven't filmed them yet. So that's where we are with the schedule. But that being said, we did get quite ahead in video, so there should be no disruption to any of the video making. And in fact, I spent time filming videos away from home, not all the time, but because I knew that if we were to have to stay home, I could make plenty of videos here. So there should be no disruption to our release schedule, I hope. And for now, about the biggest disruption we have is employees that have kids at home and things like that. And we're working with them, working at different times, and I wouldn't even say it's a big disruption. It's just a change of pace for people. In our company, anyway. I'm not speaking for everyone, obviously. Can I give you some tips on breeding African cichlids? My best tips are breed the bread and butter African cichlids. So that'd be yellow labradochromis, purple ACI, either yellowfin or whitefin, doesn't matter. Snow white socolophis, red zebras. And what you're going to notice about all those are all like bold colors, because the average person that enters the African cichlid hobby goes, ooh, I want red ones, I want blue ones, I want, ooh, that's purple, ooh, that's white, I don't have that yet. And so they're going to want this kaleidoscope of color, and you can cash in on that. Now you might go, well, this Tanganyika cichlid's cool, or this peacock is cool. The problem with peacocks is a bunch of people love those brightly colored males, but they don't want to buy any of the females. And so right off the get-go, 50% of all the fish you breed are going to sell for like a lesser amount. Whereas something like a yellow lab, males and females, both beautiful, and you get to sell 100% of those. How do you wipe blue-green algae off the face of the earth? That I don't know. Even scientists don't know that yet. But the way I get rid of it in my aquariums is an antibiotic, because it is a bacteria. I have it on my desk somewhere. Maricin is what we would use. So we treat that once, let it sit for about a week. Usually that'll get it. If you got a really, really bad case of it, you might have to dose again after a water change and doing a little bit of cleaning. But it's not that hard to deal with. Now, it can come back. So there's a two-part process that I always think here, and that is somehow you ended up in that situation. And a lot of times it might be the flow in the aquarium, the amount of water changes, light, something led that environment to get to where it was. If we only take care of the result, over time, likely we get back to that point again. So I recommend maybe adding an air stone or increasing circulation, changing some things, trying to make at least an educated guess on what may have went wrong to get to this point. Maybe you were a little lazy on water changes. Maybe you just switched out substrate. Who knows what it is, right? Maybe you came in on someone else's plant you bought. I don't know. But try to at least have an educated guess on what might have went wrong, and then try not to repeat that. If it comes back again, you know, okay, well, my first guess wasn't right. Let's guess on something else. And eventually you'll figure out, like, okay, I changed enough things that it's working now. All right. Someone was asking, what is my recommendation for a non-live bearing fish to breed for profit? That's actually something I'm considering doing for members only, like every month, putting up a fish. Because right now I travel, well, not right now, but for a lot of my workload, I travel a lot. And I see opportunities all the time, like, ooh, someone should be breeding that. That's going to make a lot of money for someone, right? So I thought about monthly posting, like, here's the fish I would be getting into right now if I was trying to make some money by breeding fish. So the question was a recommendation for a non-live bearing fish to breed for profit. Now, obviously there's something to be said for, can you even breed it? So if you're not very good at breeding, and I recommend a fish that's hard to breed, you know, like let's say I go breed cardinal tetras. Well, it's pretty labor intensive and not the easiest thing to breed. So I try to always back it up and go, well, what's something on the easier spectrum that most people could get that advice and go, oh, okay, I will try that. One of the ones that I think, if your local area is not flooded, is albino crebensis. I even bought a pair off Aquabid myself. Our area is not flooded right now. We've been out for probably 6 or 8 months. I'm going to breed some. After 2 or 3 spawns, I probably have flooded the local area. I probably wouldn't worry about raising many more at that point, and I'd move on to breeding some other stuff. And then maybe in another year to 18 months, maybe then I'd breed some more in. or breed some more and then bring them in. But that's a really easy one. The reason why I choose albino is because the male and female are easy to sex very young. Makes it very easy to sex for the employees at the store, meaning they can sell pairs. And when that's one of the things that sells itself. When you see some fish breeding in a store, most people go, ooh, if I buy these fish at $8 each and they make more $8 fish, I'm gonna be rich. But the minute you put a net in there and they scramble, you don't know who's male and female. Well, that purple stomach on the albino female is really blatant and sticks out. So it's pretty easy for the average pet store employee to be able to get a male and female out of there. It makes it really easy. And so that's where they sell easier and better than the non-albino version. You could breed those too, but I find the albino version to be the better one to be moving through a store like that. Hannah becoming a snail. Well, thank you very much. Welcome to the team. Does fingernail polish harm fish or shrimp? I would assume as long as it's well cured, it wouldn't. Now, I'm sure there's 4 billion different compounds of nail polish out there, but as far as employees and people that I talk with and have seen online, no one's ever had a problem with stuff that's been set. Now, if you just painted your fingernails and they dried 12 minutes ago, maybe you don't stick them right into your nano shrimp tank, right? But in general, that's one of the reasons why we like larger aquariums is everything gets diluted. Fish waste gets diluted. If we had some chemicals left from fingernail polish, that would be diluted out. And sometimes very small, like a little bit of bleach, even when you dilute it out, very harmful to fish. So I don't know when it comes to, fingernail polish and that kind of stuff, but the more water you have, the better. And I would try to put more time between curing and working in a fish tank. So maybe you do all your aquarium maintenance, then you paint your nails, and then maybe you wait a day or two and really make sure they're set. And you do the same thing when you paint a house or something like that, or a room. You can paint it and it says, oh, it dries in 4 hours. But it's like, well, it's a little bit tacky still. And you know that 30 days later, it's really set then. All right. I set up an 80-gallon planet tank. It's really crowded. Should I wait it out or... Wait, hold on. Cloudy, not crowded. Cloudy. Okay, it's really cloudy. Should I wait or do some water changes? I would test the water. If the water tests okay, meaning that, a couple things. If there's no fish in there, just wait. If there is fish, test the water. If any of the parameters that would be detrimental to fish are off, change some water. We don't want to jeopardize the fish, but if there's just plants and substrate and that kind of stuff, just let it season out. It'll do its thing. I recently bought my first live plant because of you, and does a community tank need an air wand, and do cichlids need an air wand also? So technically no aquarium needs an air wand or air stone in itself. Every aquarium needs oxygen in the water. In my opinion, the easiest way to make sure this is never a problem is to have an air stone in your aquariums. Now, in your example there, community tank versus an African cichlid tank. African cichlids typically are larger fish, which means we typically have more waste and more bio load in that aquarium, which would utilize more oxygen. So you could kind of infer that bigger fish, on average, need more help to make sure there's oxygen in that water. That's not always true though, but I personally live by the rule that no aquarium that I will ever have will be without oxygen if I have the choice. So I run all my tanks that way, and I have for quite a while, and it was ever since I bought meters to test dissolved oxygen. To me, I've tested so many tanks at my store and other people's store and other people's fish rooms and my own fish room, and I saw that the easiest thing I could do is any air stone would make that a non-issue. And oxygen's really important in your aquarium. So imagine you could buy a little device that would make it so you never had to change water again, everyone would be like, of course you have to have one of those. It makes the hobby so easy. I feel the same way about an air stone. It just makes it so easy in comparison that I highly recommend it. So yeah, I would, if you're asking my personal opinion, I would run air in both of those every style tank, but both of those as well. Livid Kitten, welcome, and JFDD43. All right. There was a question about a wholesaler here. I breed honey gouramis at the request from a local store. I just asked what they sell a lot of and have trouble getting from their wholesalers. Yeah, that's that's one way to do it. So the only caveat I would have there is make sure that you know what price they're willing to buy them for and how many they're looking to actually buy from you. And I would say take it slow. So for instance, let's say you guys as my customers, you all say, we want product X, Y, and Z, and I invest $100,000, I bring them all in, and you guys don't buy them. I then go out of business. So maybe what the smarter decision is, the store goes, we want you to make fish X, Y, and Z. You go, okay, well, I'm going to start with X. And when they start buying X and we turn a profit, I'll take that profit, I will buy Y. I'll start breeding Y. When that is turning a profit with X, I'll buy Z. Right? And so you scale up just to make sure, because what I experienced would happen is someone would go, okay, I've got a bunch of customers asking for honey gouramis, and I get demand up, okay, I'm breeding them, and then you start selling them, and then they go, okay, yeah, we really need you to make a Pistogramma cockatoides super red. And then you breed those, and you start selling those to them, and they're selling those, but the person that sells the fish is now so excited about your Pistogrammas, they stopped pushing your gouramis. And now you've got all these gouramis you've been breeding, and they're not buying them. So now you've basically got like, oh, I could have just bred the first one to begin with, and it would have done just fine and gotten me the same profit. So take it slow, because there are some stores that won't realize that, like, once you ask someone to produce something, you need to buy it and keep it going for quite a long time. You can't just have, one or two spawns, unless they're very upfront. Sometimes I'll be that, I'm like, you know what? You've got that fish going? Sure, I could take a spawn or two, but we're going to flood the area, so don't make more than that. And that can work. Bettas are a good example of that. Wow, you have that really cool strain? Those are super cool. We're probably only going to sell 30 to 50 of them before we've run out of homes. So, find homes for other ones and don't make a ton more. We'll have a big problem. All right. I set up an outlet as a Venturi instead of using an air pump and air stone. Yes, so that a Venturi system, what it does is when you have like a power head and it's blowing water, if you have a tube that goes up to the air, it will suck air in. It wants to carry it with it, and that will add oxygen. Now, in my testing, and there's an old crude video that I did, that didn't perform as well as an air stone. You had to put it all the way at the bottom. And then also because of the bubble size, it wasn't as good. Now, I don't want you to go, Corey said that won't work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying efficiency-wise, an air stone performed better than a power head. For all we know, your aquarium might already have enough oxygen, and the power head doesn't even make a difference anyway. It doesn't matter, right? But if you were in a very low oxygen situation, let's say you had my pond in my front yard, it's 5,000 gallons. If I put one air stone in, and it's a small air stone, that may offer more oxygen than the power head with a Venturi system. Not by leaps and bounds, not 10x as efficient or anything like that, but it is more efficient. And in that instance, I might have been getting pretty low from big koi, and that might have made a difference. For our aquariums, probably they're equal-ish, I would say. It's far better just to have air coming in through Venturi than nothing at all. An air stone I found to be a bit more efficient. That being said, maybe you've already got 2 power heads, and that's way better than just 1 air stone anyway. Okie doke. What substrate do you use when breeding Cardinia shrimp? Why use that one? Also, what's my favorite shrimp? Well, most of the time I would use ADA aqua soil, and that's because that's the only soil I've found that did really well when I was breeding crystal shrimp. I tried lots of substrates, and the only time I ever really made them into a factory where I was making tons and tons and tons of them was the aqua soil, and that's because it really held my pH at 6.4, which is what most other people are breeding crystal shrimp at, for the most part. and that made it easy for me to accomplish. So that's why. My favorite shrimp are actually cardinal shrimp. I've never bred them. I've killed them twice. I've kept them going for quite a while, but they like higher hardness and higher temperatures, and they look super cool. Buckwheat. I love my yo-yo loaches, so thanks for recommending them. They have some cool personalities. Any tips on breeding them or sexing them? I don't have any tips on breeding them. And sexing them, other than the females getting a lot more gravid with eggs and kind of being fatter through the midsection, I don't know anything without Googling it. I would wager if I Google it a little bit, usually with some of the loaches in their tail, you can see kind of a different angle to it, and that'll help you a little bit. But I've never bred them, and I don't know anyone personally that has bred yo-yos. So I would just be guessing at this point. I'd be doing internet research like anyone else would be. All right. How would you get over the factor of age? I'm a teenager, and local fish stores are not very keen on buying from you. Well, one of the things you could try is, what if you only approached your local fish stores through email? So they have no idea how old you are. So you hit them with an email. It's got all the documentation. It's got these fish with these prices. You've spell checked it very well. You've had someone peer review it, so you come across in a professional manner, and you try and set up a deal before they ever know you. Then when you go in with the fish and they want to see them, they see, oh, look at this. It's a 15-year-old kid. Wow, this kid's really honest, doing a great job. Good. And, the other thing is, turn what you're considering a weakness into possibly a benefit. So you might say that, like, one of the things might be, well, I'm only 15, so what you buy from me typically is put back into aquariums. I'm going to spend it on aquariums. I'm going to help get my friends into the hobby, which means more future customers for you. Also, you're supporting the youth. You could market these as that you're buying them from local kids, so you're putting the money back into the economy, and they're going to put that money back into the economy, and this is a good thing, and that might help you sell the Apistos that I bred, as opposed to the ones you're investing from importing from the Czech Republic. So you could try and spin that. But first, if you're really running into that age barrier, try approaching it from kind of the anonymous source. Here's an email. I've crafted it very well. I've attached a PDF with my price list and all of this and blah, blah, blah. And this is the day I deliver and all of these things. And see if you can't work something out before they go, wait a second, you're only 14. And then hopefully you want them to go, you're only 14. Wow, you are so far ahead. Good job. Instead of judging you going, oh, this kid, he's going to be a waste of my time, right? So that's how I'd approach it. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but that's how I'd approach it. And time is on your side. You might be a teenager now, but in 5 years you won't be, right? It's just the way the world works. Can a Maboo or a Faka puffer thrive with discus? I'm open to any idea, but I would say that is an idea that I wouldn't try. The higher temperatures, a Maboo puffer can take it. I haven't specifically brought a Faka puffer that high for a length of time. I have kept Maboos that hot before, but in general, I think it's going to come down to feeding. I mean, any tank big enough can be accomplished. If you have a 400,000 gallon aquarium, yeah, you probably can, but in general, Maboo puffers want harder water, higher pH. Discus want the opposite of that by feeding the puffer lots of clams. That's going to raise water hardness. So you could do it like, oh yeah, I take out the clams after he's done eating every day. I ride the water level just in the middle and do all of that. Or you could just have 2 aquariums and make your life simple. And that's pretty much always been my advice. Like just keep those 2 like that. Look at that. Works great. You can mix stuff with discus. You can mix stuff with Maboo puffers. But both of those are kind of, I would say, considered to be specialized fish. And therefore, maybe that's the better way to explain it. I consider both of those to be the center of attention in those aquariums. You're mixing 2 showpieces together, and typically that's going to mean you don't do justice to both of them. So my personal recommendation would be keep 2 different aquariums, let them be the star of the show, and cater to their needs. And you're probably going to get longer longevity out of them, less maintenance on your part, and probably more enjoyment. That being said, some people get a lot of joy out of going, can I mix these? I've got this giant aquarium. I want to do what no one else is doing. that's its own fun too, and I like to do that myself, so I get that. But yeah, so it's one of those, can it be done? The answer is probably. Is it a good idea? Maybe not. All right. Dwarf gouramis in a 10-gallon? Yeah, they work out okay if you just do, very few of them. I wouldn't do a whole herd of them or anything like that. Any tips on caring for and breeding hillstream loaches? Not really. They'll breed in almost anything. So the biggest thing is you need the fry and the eggs to be able to get away. So pebbles or rock work down at the bottom where eggs can fall in, that gets the eggs away from mouths, hungry mouths. And then you just feed lots of foods and have algae in there and let gunk build up. From there, they'll hatch out. Like we bred them in this tank with lots of other fish. We had hundreds of clown loaches. We had hundreds of tiger barbs. And we were still breeding them. We also have a large aquarium. But no, they don't have to have fast flow. They don't have to have cool water. They don't really have to have anything special about it to pull it off. Time, males and females, a decent setup, as in like good food's going in. We're not letting water parameters get too out of control. We're being a decent aquarist. All right. How much longer is this stream? Going until about 6 o'clock, which would be about another 55 minutes. How many species of apistos and how many of each would you have in a 75-gallon? I personally would only ever do one species just because I'd want them to breed. And I personally would go with one pair because then you could watch them breed, and I would enjoy that for it would probably take about 2 years to populate a 75 to where I had to be pulling out adults and that kind of stuff. But that's the type of aquarium I would enjoy. Yeah, I'm never big on. I'm just personally, I'm the opposite of how many different things can I put into this. I err on the side of how could I watch their behavior? Other people don't do this. So like me, I'm real tempted to be like, what if I just put guppies in that 800-gallon aquarium? People don't do that. Instead of, I wonder if I could fit 472 different species of fish in there. The answer is yes, I could, but that's not nearly intriguing as, I wonder what, or Corridoras. I wonder what 900 Corridoras, do they swim differently? Do they do different stuff? I wonder what that would actually be like. I just err on that side. And I totally get the people that err on the, as I call the Noah's Ark type of aquarium, where they walk into like, okay, I want 2 of every fish in this place because they're afraid of missing out. I get that. And I'm sure I was like that at the beginning of my hobby as well. But as I've been around fish longer, I realize that 2 of a fish is enjoyable. What I've learned over time is like, wait, 200 of that fish, they do something that the 2 fish would never do. Interesting. I wonder what other fish do things I've never seen them do. So that's where my mind wanders. So that's why I'm always gonna kind of default to that. Less species is more for me. How many angels in a 29 until a pair forms? I would say 6 or so. Dean will do 10 or 12 at a time. They can pair off fairly small. But yeah, it depends on your budget. Fish for a small above ground pond in Colorado. I don't know how cold it gets over there, so I would white clouds, maybe rice fish. You might still have to intervene. Like it can't freeze absolutely solid. I don't know exactly nighttime temperatures in the winter and that kind of stuff, but you might have to intervene a little bit there. Tips on breeding Corridoras in a Planet 55. Lots of food. Whatever you're feeding, feed more. Yeah, I'm hearing sound somewhere. I don't know. So I would, like with my laser Corridoras, we'd feed half a pound to a pound of live blackworms at a time.
Yes, that sequence of words I said made perfect sense.
With, yeah, I can hear myself. That's what I'm hearing. I got to figure out where I'm playing. Right here? Nope, that's muted. This is driving me nuts. So when I talk and then I hear myself, oh, maybe Am I monitoring myself? Nope, I'm not monitoring myself in the software. I'm derailing myself, but it's going to keep derailing me.
Yes, that sequence of words I said made perfect sense.
I keep closing Windows till it goes away.
Yes, that sequence of words I said made perfect sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I got too many windows open. And people messaging me. Sorry. All right. Oh, I could probably turn the volume down. That'll just solve my problem. Turn these off. All right. We're back at it. So for breeding the corridors, lots of rapacious food will work. And like big chunks. Not like, oh yeah, I feed it this much, like now I'm gonna feed this much, like a lot. You gotta put a lot of body fat to make them want to make eggs. And part of what way some fish breed are when there's lots of nutrients around, lots of food, then they will go, okay, we should breed. There's plenty of food for the babies. So that's my plan of attack there. All right. Oh, you're hearing Futurama? Why are you hearing?
Yes, that
Futurama?
Sequence of words I said made perfect sense.
There's something triggering it? I wasn't switching scenes. I don't know. Oh well.
Yes,
yeah, there's got to be something that was triggering that, but I don't know what was. Interesting. Well, if you hear it a bunch more, let me know, and I'll try and figure it out more. Anyway. Lino15 became a member. Thank you very much. Yeah, there should be no trigger when somebody becomes a member or anything. That's weird. It should just be this. And I don't know why I just started doing it. That's the other weird part. I have pond snails, and I have an outbreak slightly after adding CO2 in new plants. I think it was due to the melt. How long after an influx will the problem take care of itself? Assuming you get rid of the food, which was the melting.
Yes, that sequence of words I said made perfect sense.
Yeah, it's doing it again, I think. Why is it? All right, hold on. I'm going to delete these. How do I delete these things? Remove. Remove sound 1. Remove sound 2. Bizarre. Anyway, removing the food source, they're eventually going to starve out unless there's just like tons of fish poop and everything, in which case, you know, they're going to sustain, but you'll probably end up with like, oh, I've got 3 snails that are big and not a ton of babies. So it'll level off. That's what you want, is kind of the balance. Jessica Spade became a member. Thank you. You guys are slowly witnessing me lose my mind of like, what happens is, I should press this button because I'm live. What happens is software updates make changes and things, and then they don't announce what's going on, and yeah, I don't know. So we do the best we can each week, and hopefully it gets better over time. That's the only thing I can hope for. All right. It might be, yeah, tied to memberships or something. It shouldn't be. Doesn't mean it's not, but it shouldn't be. All right. As far as I know, only the Corys are really shrimp safe on that list. Oh, I think we're talking to a different list because I'm not seeing it. Yeah. Don't know. Let me try one more thing here. All right. Views on culling. I think it's a necessity if you're selling fish for profit. You know, it's about the only alternative I feel. You could give those ones that you would cull to the store. Now, you shouldn't charge them for them. they're probably going to sell them to someone. And what's going to happen is, like, let's say out of 400 angels, you have 350 that are sellable, 50 that aren't. When you give that 50 of them to the store, they sell them. The person who's going to buy those, they might have bought one of your other ones that was sellable. So you're basically just giving away, your profits. So I feel like you do need to cull, and maybe you've got, a tank where you put all your culls. Maybe you like have turtles eat them. It just depends. Yeah. It's a touchy subject because it's not easy to be like, nah, just get rid of those. Like, it's not fun. No one enjoys it. But at the same time, if you're doing it for profit and stuff like that, like it's part of it, unfortunately. Ever thought or come across someone breeding peep overs? Sure, yeah. How common are they captive bred? About 50% of the year they're captive bred. And are they more desirable over wild caught? Not necessarily. On average, most customers would never even ask or care. So in terms of a store perspective of the customer, they don't care. They only care about price. Now, sustainability and things like that, like, yeah, the stores care a bit. Wholesalers care a bit. But at the end of the day, what usually rules is money. So unfortunately, and there's other things too, like wild caught sometimes are actually more robust, and captive raised ones typically come in smaller. They don't sell as well. In a perfect world, if they were same size, same price, I think we would choose wild caught, or not wild, sorry, captive raised, unless there was a reason to prefer wild caught, like maybe that river system or wherever they come from would be destroyed if no one was buying them. So there's things to think about, but I'm not sure. It's not like in the freshwater world we don't put a premium on captive raised stuff like we do on some things in the saltwater world. So we're not there yet. May never get there. I'm not sure. Yeah. You could triple your profits if you did the same thing with saltwater fish and saltwater dry goods. I don't think so, because I don't care about saltwater. Like, I've done it. I don't have the same passion. So if I was forced to do saltwater, I probably would just leave the industry. In general, unless you run a saltwater store, you don't realize that the profits aren't the same. It's much harder to hire qualified help than it is freshwater. There is about 1/10 as many customers as there is freshwater customers. And in general, this is a harder gig. So that's why we don't really see them dominating local pet stores, is because it's not easy. Now, it doesn't mean there won't be the winners like Bulk Reef Supply. There's places doing good jobs, but they're serving a market that is smaller. And I just don't believe that I would be good at that job because I don't have the same passion. For all the places I've gone in the world, I never really want to go see the saltwater places. It's like, I mean, it's all right. Like, even when I visited the guy that was breeding Shodenai puffers and that kind of stuff, he had a whole saltwater room, and I went through it. I was like, the coolest thing in the saltwater room to me was the rotifers and all that kind of stuff. Like the actual fish, I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's cool, right? So I just don't think that would work out well for me because that's not my passion, and I'm lucky to have a passion that is profitable, or at least can be. I mean, I could run this thing into the ground tomorrow, so I got to work on it constantly. What do I think about keeping a betta with 10 silver tips in a 20-gallon? In general, silver tips are pretty rambunctious. They eat quickly, and I think there's a high possibility they could nip at the betta. If I was going to attempt it, I would only attempt like a placat, a short-finned betta that was more nimble and might be able to hold its own. But if it didn't work out, I would have a backup plan for sure. And it would be one of the tanks that I would be hesitant to put a betta into at the shop. I mean, now we have the containers we put them in, but even before, it'd be like, we have to, we'll put one in there, but we got to really keep an eye on it because I don't want it to go south. Not sure about saltwater market being 1/10 the size of freshwater. Well, I mean, all the pet industry's studies show it. So, I mean, I'm not polling the world, but the people that it is their job to analyze these markets do produce reports about that. So, yeah. I mean, you'd say, like, I'd be surprised how many people have saltwater tanks. Sure, that might be true. Most people are surprised to realize 1 in 10 homes in the world have a freshwater aquarium, right? Like, it doesn't seem that prevalent, but, you know, like, if you go to garage sales or you go to the thrift store or anything like that, how often do you see a saltwater setup there versus, oh, there's a 10-gallon tank with some supplies in it for freshwater, like all the time, right? And so it's usually there's a bias there. When someone is into something, they naturally assume more people are into it than they are. So if I like to drink this Monster, I'm predisposed to go, lots of people drink this Monster because I like it. But that has no correlation into what data actually shows. And so, yeah, I mean, there's tons of info out there. You know, the fact that saltwater is very popular in California. It's also very popular in Florida. You know where it's not popular? Idaho, Montana, all the middle of the country, because they don't have free saltwater. They don't have, you know, like, if you live in Hawaii and you can go look at the saltwater fish, you want to bring a slice of that back to your home. That's one of the demographics, where if you go and you fish all the time, there's tons of people that want to set up bass aquariums and that kind of stuff because they want to bring that nature home with them. There's all kinds of influences, and, you know, for me, just numbers are numbers. I don't have a feeling one way or another. You know, if saltwater was 10 times as big as freshwater, I would go, great. I'm going to still focus on the freshwater. That's where my passion is. And I don't see it as a competition. You know, just like I don't see, you know, a better example of that would be 82% of people own a dog or a cat if they already own a fish tank. I don't sell any dog supplies, even though I have dogs. I don't sell any cat supplies. Same thing. Like, so one thing I could say is, like, if we believe we could make more money with saltwater, we could easily make more money with dog and cat supplies as well. We choose not to, so that we stay focused on fish, because that's where our passion is. And we've watched other competitors expand and they lose their like focus on what they're doing, and they're trying to do too many things. And the quality over time typically goes down unless you have a very robust upper management team. It's the same reason we don't open other stores and things like that, is we want to remain laser focused. And a good example of this, a good example would be if we were focusing on, let's say, saltwater or dogs or cats or something else besides just freshwater fish. When, like, people are asking us, why don't we have easy route tabs available in Canada? Well, with the import fees and the fee structure of Amazon and all of that, our current 20-pack would make no sense. We'd have to sell it for so much money that we would just look bad, and I don't think people would buy it. If we were focused on other products, we would go, great. Not worried about that. Let's focus on this protein skimmer brand deal we've got going on. We'll sell that in the store and online. We'll make videos, and we'll just never even worry about that. Not enough money on the table. But instead, because that is what we focus on, we have that time, and we go, okay, well, what we're actually doing is we're going to develop a larger bulk pack. I don't know what size yet, but it will have more tabs in it, because the set fees on Amazon and the import fees and the way that works, we'll be able to offer you more for your money if we make it more bulk. And then we'll also bring that product into, like, our online store and our retail store. So we get that, for lack of a better term, bandwidth back to focus on optimizing these things instead of just moving on to, I don't want to say more lucrative, but just like other things to chase down, I guess. Someone was asking if we've partnered with Aquahuna. I don't know if partnered is the right word. We are an affiliate for them. So what does that mean? That means that when you buy from them and you use our code, we get a percentage of the sale. Now, a couple of reasons we do that. One, people ask us where we buy fish. We've been buying fish from them at the store I used to work at and the store I own for over 10 years. We know the owners well, and We ran our own tests on having, they just started shipping like, I don't know, 9 months ago or something. I mean, they've been shipping fish all around the country to stores for years and years and years, but to home hobbyists just like 8 or 9 months ago or something. And they did that when they lost, when Walmart stopped selling fish, they lost a portion of their business, and they doubled down. They go, okay, we got to get a new revenue stream, just like we would if we were breeding fish for profit, right? So then they start selling direct to home hobbyists, and we did our own testing. We had stuff sent to different employees and stuff like that, and we had it filmed, and we documented the process, and we reached out to the customer service and all that. And we got the same experience that we get normally, and that was a relatively trouble-free experience. And because we have people asking us where they can buy fish, where do we recommend Aquabid still. We get nothing for that. I still think that's a great resource. You buy from the breeders, that kind of stuff. But this other source, yes, we would get a piece of it if you were to buy from them. The show is not sponsored by them, so it's not like they're paying me to say that. Like, if you buy something, I do get paid, but they're not saying, like, here's $100, talk about us. That's not happening. But yes, I wanted, so when we do things like we did a clown killie video, and I actually didn't realize till after the fact, like, wait, they sell clown killies. We should tell people where they can buy them, because people were leaving comments, where can I find clown killies? My local fish store doesn't have clown killies. And I was like, well, they just order them online. But, the disconnect is not everyone is used to ordering fish online. They literally have no idea where to go. They don't know Aquabid. They don't know eBay. They don't know all these websites to buy fish. And so then it became natural to like, okay, well, let's lead them somewhere. And then if we have the ability to make some money from leading someone somewhere, that is good for us. Now, we're very stringent in that plenty of other people have offered us money in the past, but we didn't have the working relationship. We didn't fully believe in the process and the way they were doing things, and so we never acted on that. There was one other company that was, just one other company that was Twin Cities Guppies, King Lee. Been to his house. We filmed it. We love that family. We love the fish, everything like that. And even though I've like accrued some credit, I've never taken it from them or anything. But technically, we had a very small deal worked out. Mostly, I just wanted to track how many sales we could send their way was the reason we were actually doing it. So yeah, but I wouldn't say partner, because I don't want it to seem like if they do a horrible job, that's on us. We've done our research and we can recommend them, but I wouldn't say like we're on the hook. Like, it's not like we're going to issue credit or anything. It's not our website. Like, it's not our employees, nothing like that. But it is a place that we do buy from every week. We've done tours there, that kind of stuff. We have a long working relationship with them. That's what I can say, I guess. What's the best way to keep a brine shrimp warm to hatch if I don't heat the room? What we found is like a light bulb. So there's some ways you can build it out of PVC where you put a bulb in and then it, like, the heat would rise, kind of like a lava lamp works, similar premise, or just like a bendy lamp thing, so you can like get it real close and use a bulb that gets warm enough. And you might use some of the older bulbs like the incandescents. You might use LED. You might use CFLs, and you got to play around with the wattage to get the correct temp. You don't want it way too hot. You don't want it way too cold. But that heat does kind of transfer in there, and it will warm it up by a degree or two. First step I would say is let some air be bubbling in there, get a thermometer and see how many degrees off of where you want to be to hatch these things out. And then go from there of how hot do I need to get this compared to where it is right now. Kind of like an aquarium. I wish my lighting setup was more conducive to this hat. I like wearing this hat, but I have to take it off for these live streams because if I look down too much, now it shades out my eyes. But love my Murphy hat. Do you absolutely have to ship overnight when buying fish online? No. Odds get better. So like the fish I ordered in from Aquabid, I did pay to have them shipped overnight because I could afford to. That's really what it comes down to. But for many, many, many years, I have not paid for that, and I get the 2-day shipping. And 9 times out of 10, it works out well. There is like 1 time out of 10, something goes wrong. But I've had stuff go wrong. In fact, when I ordered off Aquabid, I paid for overnight shipping. It didn't arrive the next day. It actually arrived the following day. So it might have been all the same if I had just ordered the priority shipping as well. But you know, it really does depend a lot on how people are packing it and what type of fish, what kind of heat packs. There's a lot of things go into it. When we were selling fish, we shipped a lot of fish, and we would ship them priority, and we did well with it in terms of them arriving alive and all that. But it's if you have the money, shorter is always better, you know. And what I would prefer, if I'm buying fish, we like to put them on a plane and I pick them up from the airport. It's just not very many people offer that. You know, you can get a box of fish, a pretty big box of fish, and you go pick it up from the airport, it might be $70. Shipping that many fish overnight might cost you $170. So airport can be efficient, but they have to be approved shipper. There has to be enough flights. Like right now, if I had someone put it on a plane, we're having delays because there's not as many planes going back and forth the country. So, you know, everything, you know, there's an effect on everything there, but you don't have to. But I would say if you can afford it, it increases your odds, but also at the same time, if you live really close to where you're ordering from, so like let's say Aquahuna is in Washington, if you live in Oregon, I mean I think they only ship overnight. I'm not sure what they do actually off the top of my head without reading it. I think it's overnight. Or no, I'd have to look. But the closer you are to where they're shipping from, the less you need to spend for overnight, because like it probably lands overnight in Oregon anyway, even if you buy a priority. So, yeah. Any reason assassin snails wouldn't eat? They're starving till they're dead. Ram's horn and nerites are thriving in the same tank. They could be preying on each other, feed frozen bloodworms, you know, real meaty stuff. They can feed on that, but they will attack each other. But usually they'll take out other snails first. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on for you. Best option for removing algae from a nubius in a 125 goldfish tank with hillstream loaches you're asking if hillstream loaches are autosinkless. I really don't recommend autosinkless. They typically get stuck in the throats of goldfish. Hillstream would be a much better one. That being said, depends on what type of algae. Not every type of algae eater eats every type of algae. So you'll want to make sure you line those two up. If I've got this type of algae, these things are known to eat that type of algae. Thoughts on growing plants for profit? Yes. I think it makes all the sense in the world if you're going to grow them anyway. If you're already good at business, that makes even more sense. But not everything's going to be profitable all the time. Java moss, really profitable. Stem plants, sometimes. I kind of treat them in addition to. So if I was going to bring you a tank full of guppies, I'd be like, hey, I got a bucket full of moss too. You want moss? Oh, you do? Great. Let's sell it. But you know, it depends on who you're selling to. You selling on Aquabid, maybe you go on some higher end stuff. You're selling your local store, maybe you go on lower end stuff. Maybe you're selling to a wholesaler, maybe they got a specific need. We run into stuff all the time that just runs out of stock at the farms. Like, oh, we're looking for it. Yeah. So that I wonder if that voice fired again when we got a new super chat. But thank you, or not super chat, member Mary for re-upping and becoming the green puffer. How many Danios in a 75-gallon tank? A lot, depending on the type of Danio. If they're giant Danios, not as many as zebra Danios, but a lot. You know, 20 could be the right number, 70 could be the right number, anywhere in between could be the right number, depending on which. How can I remove detritus worms? If they're planaria, so currently I'm testing Expel P. My first round with the first dosage did not get rid of my planaria. So I've got more tests to do. So I don't know the correct dosage yet for at least my 75-gallon that has planaria. So that's a lot of people have been asking, when are you guys going to launch Expel P on your website? When I can give you guys my recommendations, here's how I do it. And right now, because I haven't used levamisole, which is the active ingredient in Expel P, 1.5 billion times, and especially not at whatever the dosage is, and specifically, like I think this is 10 milligrams per whatever. No, it's 113 milligrams of levamisole hydrochloride per packet. Because I haven't used it in that dosage, I have to learn, you know, I want to know how much kills planaria, how much above that kills snails and shrimp, how much to kill, Camellinus redworm. So I want to be able to go, look, and this is every manufacturer. They go, X should do X. But the reason I think you guys trust me and buy from me is because I go, yeah, X does X, but Corey found that Y actually works. Not X, Y does. And so, yes, I could sell that product and you guys could be testing it too, but I want to be able to give that direction to go with it. And so that's why we haven't brought it on yet. Someone says, my platies love eating detritus worms. Yes, typically bigger fish that will pick at things will do it. So gouramis are usually a good one. Platies would be a good one. Not so much like Congo tetras wouldn't be a good one. Cichlids, not necessarily a good one, but mollies would probably be good. Things like that typically are good at eating those as well. I live in Portland. I'm planning to make a trip up to you to get my first betta. Do you think there would be any issue for the fish on the drive back? Unlikely. It's a betta is a relatively easy fish to move around anyway, but that trip's probably 4-ish hours. I don't know exactly where in Portland you live, but or wait, you said Portland? Yeah, in my mind, Portland and Oregon may as well be the same thing. So you're under 4 hours away. Should be non-issue at all. At worst, just say, hey, employee that's bagging up my betta, I got a 3-hour drive home. Can you put it in a big bag? I know, it'll be, because they're gonna say it'll be fine anyway. You just be like, yeah, I know. It'll be less stress for me. And then they go, okay, let me get you a big bag. And yeah, it should be very easy though. I wouldn't sweat that at all. In fact, the only way you can do it wrong is if you try too hard. Like, oh, I got to keep it warm. I'm gonna put it right in front of the heater and cook it on the way home, or leave it on the dash and the sun beats down on it. Like, if you just kind of take it in the bag, put it next to you. If you're comfortable in your car, that betta's comfortable in that car too. How do you go about looking for a betta that would be less aggressive temperament around a shop? I don't know how to really do that, Robert. It's kind of like it's like adopting a dog. They act completely different in that environment, and so I think it's a lot of luck. The best thing I would say, and this is going to drive every pet store owner nuts, is express your concerns to the pet store owner and go, look, if I bring this thing home and it's an absolute terror, is there something we can do? Like, could I bring it back and we could swap it out for another one? Like, what could we do here? Is there half back, like half credit back? What could we do? Because that's kind of what goes on with adopted dogs and stuff. Like, if it's just an absolute not a good fit, it's not going to work for anyone. So most times when we have a customer like that, we would be like, yeah, we could probably make that work. Obviously don't let it get too beat up. Don't let things happen. And if we value as a customer, which we do, and you should be a little bit, I would say, how do I say this? Incentivizing, be like, look, I want to buy this betta, and if it doesn't work out, I want to bring it back and swap for another one. I'm also buying the food for it and these things, and I want to support you. I just want to make sure we got a working relationship. I plan to buy stuff from you in the future, and blah, blah, blah. Like that, that's really hard to say no for. Like, yeah, sure, no worries. Like, we got 200 bettas. Yeah, we'll swap one out. I hope it works out, and I would say, like, we would say, let's give it 2 or 3 weeks. It can take a while to settle in, but after that, like, you can't bring it back 9 months later and be like, oh, it's aggressive. Like, well, that doesn't work for us either. So there's give and take, I guess, in the relationship is what I was trying to explain, I suppose. What do I know about freshwater gobies? I mean, that's kind of like asking, what do I know about pizza? Like, a lot? What is it that you're trying to know? Like, is it how to make pizza? How to eat it? Thin crust? Thick crust? Rhinogobicus species? Ones that just eat biofilm? Like, which type are we looking at here? Freshwater? Saltwater? Do I know a good CO2 regulator? Yeah, I would say the ones that I buy CO2 Art. Is that right? CO2 Art? Yes, I buy CO2 Art regulators. They're expensive, but I don't think I've ever had one fail, which is good. Daryl Shields became a member. Welcome. How would you start selling online, shipping, and websites? Well, I mean, I have some videos on kind of doing that. I've documented everything we've done kind of on our channel. I've also have a business channel called Unique Viewers. It's hard because that's an advanced question. Like, which part? Like, are you talking about how do you specifically code a website? Are you talking about which platform should you use? Are you talking about which way you should market, and should you use, pixel tracking and Google Analytics to retarget? Like, there's so many facets to that. It would be like me going, how do you start operating on people when they need a new heart? Like, well, you would start doing some cursory research and figure out you need to get educated on this subject, and then at that point you could come to me with a specific question like, oh, do you think this school or this is better at learning this subject? Do you think this platform is better than this platform? Like, do you think I should go to college to become a doctor, or should I try to do that through the military? Or, and obviously I'm not a doctor. I don't know if those are even valid things I just said, but very open-ended question. And so more targeted questions are easier to answer. This platform or this platform? Would you do brick and mortar before online? Would you try and sell on YouTube before you would do a website? Yes, I would, by the way. So there's, it's a big thing. It's kind of, it's a big ask, I guess. It's almost like that's why we have business plans and all that kind of stuff. Is like there's so much to even think about that it's a tall order. Could water change make a difference in ick? Water change? I mean, you could stress fish out and get them to get ick. If you're asking, can you like just change water and get rid of ick? I mean, I guess technically that's true, but not likely at all. Yeah, I'm going to say you can't do it. And it technically can be done. I don't want to say it can't be done because technically it could be done, but no, I would say it can't be. Which I know I just like contradicted myself, but there's like 1 in a million chance that you can water change and gravel vac your way through an ick outbreak, and that's just not going to happen for people. So that's why I'm just like, it's either to say no, because I don't want someone to go, Corey said you could water change your way through ick. Like, well, no, but it's also not technically impossible. I actually think you have better odds of winning the lottery than you do beating ick through water changes, personally. Team Canada! That's all I got. Team Canada. What plants can you suggest for big goldfish? Anubias, java ferns, crinums, African fern bulbitis, sometimes Vallisneria. I'd say those ones so far. What's the hardest fish I've ever bred? I don't know if I've bred anything. Well, part of it is once I breed it, then I don't think it's difficult. What's the hardest thing I've ever bred? Because like goldfish, I've done that a few times, but it's mostly been accidental. I've been like trying to do it. I bred koi. But if you were like to ask someone like, oh, that's a lot of work, but I don't know if it's hard. What is something that's been like actually challenging? I mean, I guess the hardest thing, and it's going to sound stupid, but crystal shrimp. And the reason it was so hard is because I tried for years to do it without giving in and buying ADA substrate, because I'd been able to breed any other fish and shrimp that I've ever come in contact with without having to use a specific substrate like that. So I tried for years and I could not get it to work without it. So maybe that's the hardest, because it just took me years to finally give in and buy the right product, set up, and then it was easy mode. But I still don't think it's hard, because now that we have the information of like buy ADA soil, cycle a tank, put your crystal shrimp and some moss in there, don't do water changes, we'll make a ton more for a few years. Like that seems like, when you say it that way, it seems really easy, right? So it's, I guess the hardest fish that I've ever bred are all the ones that like I haven't bred, which then you haven't bred them. But yeah, I mean, is there anything like, there's labor. So like rainbow fish aren't hard to breed, but raising their babies is a ton of work. So, I mean, but it's not hard. It's not hard work. It's not difficult work. It's just a lot of work. So I don't know. That's a hard question to ask. How do you breed Carbensis? How big do the female bristlenose plecos need to be to breed? So Carbensis usually male-female pair. Typically, they want a cave where a female can get in there. The male goes in, they lay the eggs, they fertilize them. Then the female blocks out the male from ever coming back in. So sometimes you'll see online a burrito cave. It kind of looks like a burrito with a small hole in it on the side. You can use other types of stuff, and they'll make their own. Sometimes you can put a flower pot with a hole, and they'll like back up a lot of substrate, so there's just a small hole to get in and out. And then from there, they're really good parents. So the female will raise the babies. You just put lots of crushed up flake and that kind of stuff. Not too difficult. When it comes to, the other question was, how big does a female bristlenose have to be? It's not size, it's age. Typically they have to be, in my experience, I like to say at least a year. Could be as soon as maybe 9 months, but 12 to 14 months I find a lot of success breeding bristlenose plecostomus, just because it's an age thing. You can't be too young. You can get them pretty big pretty quick if you're really trying, but that doesn't that doesn't necessarily get them to puberty where they can breed. Whoa, giant super chat from Larry Walter. This is just say thank you. I'm a member for your expertise and resources. I'm starting my first aquarium planted, and my confidence came out of your information. I bought my first plants, which were fabulous. Well, thank you very much. Like, that's very, very generous. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad that you're getting in, and I hope this comes across, one, to potential members, and two, I hope you guys feel this way, that you're getting enough out of memberships. It's a very hard. I struggle a lot with memberships and everything, almost every day, of like, I want to do more for the members. And then at the same time, like, but I don't want to put everything behind a paywall. So usually what I'm pretty much what I'm doing, like, we shot some videos with Dean and I, and some of them are like on the cusp of like, should we reshoot that? Is that video good enough? I don't know. And so for sure, they're at least good enough for like a membership video of like, yeah, we can see the light of day, but I can't put it out main channel because it'll anger the YouTube God algorithm, and then like the channel will go downward, right? So it's like, oh, well, I've been trying to be more active on stories and just do a little more things, but it's a tough thing. I'm always conflicted of like, do more things all the time, but don't want to keep people from seeing it, / this and that. And sometimes it's nice because it's almost like a low key thing. Like, Dean, let's just do something for the members. Oh, okay. Well then, he can be a little more jokesy, and we don't have to watch what we say quite as much. And it's not gonna be a ton of editing for Jimmy and that kind of stuff. But I hope you guys, I hope you feel good about being a member. I try to provide, and yeah, I don't know why I went into that tangent, but there it is. Do you think a ghost knife and a fire eel can coexist? Yeah, I've done that combo quite a few times, both at a store and that kind of stuff. And yes, enough food, enough cover, enough caves and that kind of stuff. But realize that every time I say something can work, it's only can. Doesn't mean will, just means can. And I think it can work. Steve Carb, welcome. I'm from New Zealand. There's a lot of debate around keeping a beta sorority. What do you think? I personally think female beta sororities are just a death tornado. And I'm only saying that based on my experiences where I've tried several times. We've sold plenty of female betas to customers. I've watched most of them crash and burn. So I think we either need to be A, find out a much better way of doing this, and then the public will be successful, or B, it just isn't a good thing. And what I mean by that is, maybe if I put 20 female betas in a fully planted 800-gallon tank, it might work just fine. But the conventional wisdom of like, well, what if I put 6 or 7 in a 20 long? Like, that just doesn't seem to work. A lot of the sizes I've tried, 29, all these things, they've never worked long term for me. And so it's not that it can't be done. I don't think the common wisdom's out there for the success rate that we would want. And for me, that's where most people would have success. And right now, it's for sure in the other camp. More people will be disappointed than will be happy from doing beta sororities in the typical ways that online would recommend, and that I would recommend, and that I've seen. And people just think you're crazy when I'm like, yeah, How about you do a 6-pack in a 180-gallon tank? I think that could work. Oh, that you're insane. No, that's a waste of a tank. Like, okay, well, I don't think it's going to work in the 20 long either, but I think you need to try something crazy to really see it work. But most people aren't willing to do it, myself included. I'm not going to go, let's try 12 bettas, females in there, and let it go for 2 years, and then I can report back. That doesn't. I'm not going to be super passionate about that project. And even if it worked well, you guys are going to be like, oh, well, I ordered up my 800-gallon, wanted to get that female betta sorority going. It's like, well, that's just my own thing. And there are people that have had success. I am just not one of them, unfortunately. And a lot of my customers aren't. Thoughts on electric blue Acaras? I think they look amazing. I've been very tempted to breed them several times. I just haven't. I think it's a really good fish for a lot of people, especially if you're in that kind of middle ground of fish. I don't know what do I call that category? I can name the fish that go in that category. I just don't know what I would call it. Things like baller sharks, giant danios, blood parrots, angels, Penapoma leaf fish, like all these fish that are like this big-ish. You've got tons of that. That electric blue Acara is a great fish to add into that style of tank. I just don't know what to call that size of. Is it a size of fish? Is it a type of tank? I don't know. I don't know what to call that. Can axolotls have a cleanup crew? What could you do? I've had people keep like white clouds. Sometimes they get eaten. I think you could do a Japanese trapdoor snail if you always removed any babies that came off of it. There's not a lot of options. Steph says, my local fish store has a 200-gallon tank that's a female sorority with lots of rocks and plants and tons of females and lots of plecos. Yeah, I could believe that works. It's also the same thing of like, I myself probably wouldn't do a 200-gallon betta sorority, and I think most people don't. But I could at least entertain of like, I feel like that's got a pretty good shot. If anyone came in the store and was like, I got a really large tank and I'm going to do this, I would say, I'll be interested in the results because I bet you have a better shot than me putting 30 of them in a 55. In general, I find that more space gives me more space for mistakes that I typically make. If I produce a winter hardy guppy that can survive outside, is that something that could be profitable to sell? Yes, I think if you could do that, it's worth lots of money. Anything that can overwinter in ponds like that for a majority of, let's say, America or the world, you got something that I would want to buy, and I think most people would. I think that's a good, it's just assuming you can pull it off. If you can pull it off, more power to you. I'll be first in line to buy them. All right. Aqua Discovery says, white clouds are my cleanup crew for axolotls, and I expect him to pick off a few, so I get a few every couple weeks at local fish store. Yeah, so you've got similar experiences to what we've had with customers and that, and yeah, I don't think there's a great crew. There probably is something if I really, really, really thought about it, like maybe you could pull off reticulated hillstream loach. I think axolotls are so derpy, they'd really have a hard time ever getting one into their mouth because they're like a giant suction cup. But if I thought long enough, there could be some other reason like, oh, maybe that wouldn't work. But that could work as well, like especially a larger one. I wouldn't go with a small one. Have I ever kept licorice grammies? Yeah. Only at the store, never personally though. I've never been that drawn to them. I think they look kind of cool, but they're not very active, and yeah, part of the problem is if you sell a lot of fish at a store, eventually it's got to like cross the threshold of like, I got to have this in my house and do it when, like I live fish all day, then you go home and you live fish. It's really got to be cool. If you're just like, oh, I think that thing's super cool, but not cool enough to take it home necessarily. And, I would say like maybe someone that works at a shelter or something for dogs, like they have dogs at home, but like to bring another dog home, that dog's got to be 1 in a million. And that's kind of the way it is for me with fish for so long, is like, yeah, they're at the store, I can interact with them every day. They really got to be like 1 in a million. I really want to try and do something with these for me to take it home and set up an aquarium and play with them. Because otherwise I can do it at the shop. Got about 5 minutes left. Corey, the guppies gave birth finally for the first time while on vacation. Any quick tips? Just crush up flake food, feed them a lot, keep the parents fat and happy. They'll chase down less fry. Hopefully you got some cover in there. And don't stress if you lose some. The reason they have so many babies, they expect them to be eaten. And so if you raise any, look at that as like a gift. And from there, you can work on, if you want to, raising more. You know, that's like when let's say I was going to compare myself to Dean. And if Dean has raised, let's say, 10,000 discus to sellable size in his lifetime, and I've only raised a couple hundred, right? Let's say I wouldn't go, well, Dean had 100 eggs and raised up 98. I had 100 eggs and I raised up 76. I wouldn't look at that as a failure. I look at it as like, he's got a lot more practice. That's where I want to be someday, and that's what I think you should do. So it's like, okay, guppies finally gave birth, and you're on vacation. Get some to live. When it happens in 35 days again, roughly, go, okay, let's try and get some more to live. If you want. You might not want to. You might be going, I got too many now. But, my tip would be don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to yourself and try to just up your game. Going, oh, yeah, I did a little bit better. I tried a different food this time. I had frozen cyclops around, or I had this, or I had this going on. I had more moss this time, or I put a feeder on the tank, or whatever you're going to do. And that's what I do. I just go, see if I can do that differently. Ooh, I like that method way better. Not doing that anymore. Ricardo de Leon. Can I use a 5-gallon tank for quarantining in hospital? I have the space for a 10-gallon, but not sure your wife will let you. I've got a 20 and a 36-gallon bow front, plus the 5-gallon. The answer would be yes. There's really no reason you couldn't use the 5-gallon. The only reason I would even like try to coax you into something else is when you go to use meds, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult. Not impossible, but when let's say you need to do Maricin, right? Well, a packet treats 10 gallons. That's super convenient. Open it up, dump it in, done. Now with a 5-gallon tank, you'd be like, okay, well, I got dump the contents out and like try to split it into 2 equal portions. Dump the portion in, try and save the other portion without it just falling on the floor. The talking points I have when I run this in the store is that a 5-gallon is 16 inches long and I think it's 8 inches front to back, right? A 20-gallon or a 10-gallon is only going to be 20 inches long, so it's 4 inches longer, and basically it's 10 inches front to back. So it's almost, if you have 4 more inches on the counter or wherever this thing's going, it may as well be a 10-gallon tank. I would wager, and I'm not suggesting we do this, but I would wager anyone that's not in the hobby, if you had a 5-gallon tank sitting in the garage, and you let it sit there, and you go, oh, I'm going to set that up so I can quarantine fish. And they go, okay, but only that tank. If you were to swap that for a 10-gallon tank and the 5-gallon tank went away, there's not enough of a size difference for the average non-fish keeper to go, wait a second, that thing is clearly a few gallons bigger. Like, spatial awareness is hard. Just like when you look at a gallon of milk and you look at a 5-gallon tank, you're like, wait, 5 gallons of this milk fits in there? That is impossible. Spatial awareness is hard, even for us when we're in the hobby. Think about this. Does this tank look like it would be 800 gallons of milk? When you even, think about, you're like, I couldn't fit that in my car. Like 800 gallons, that's more than the store has. It takes up way more volume in our head than okay, if you poured them in, that's actually 800 gallons. So I think you could probably pick up $1 per gallon sale and just make that swap, and it's only 4 inches, and it might make your quarantine procedure a lot easier, but every once in a while there might be, a very specific reason why you could. Sometimes a dorm room and they are checking. That would be one of those specific instances. But yeah, I think, a lot of times the sentiment is more like, just don't go crazy. Don't set up tons more tanks. Like, if it serves a specific purpose. For a long time, I had my quarantine tank, which was a 10-gallon, in the stand of my other tank. So you'd have to open it up. You'd have to go down there. You'd have to look. But fish didn't live there year-round. They were just there through quarantine. I was checking them in on them every day. All right. We have 1 minute till we're all going to go raid KD Tropical's live stream. It's been a little while. We got to come up with a hashtag, and today the hashtag will be, what is it going to be? Today the hashtag is water, because I'm drinking water today. So hashtag water. I'll see you over there. I'm going to listen in and hang out and keep wearing my hat. And I'll be back next Thursday to live stream again. And if you're cooped up like I am, hey, you got plenty of videos to watch coming out from us, and I'm sure other people. And I'm spending a lot of time playing in the fish room. So is Dean. So hopefully we'll have more videos to make for you. So hashtag water. We'll see you over at the KD Tropicals live stream. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Couple hours. And stay safe out there. You know, that's the best advice I got. Doesn't matter when it is. Stay safe and be kind.